Welcome to Rewiring Health, your hub for transformation and empowerment. I'm your host, Kelly Kessler, and I'm here to guide you in aligning with your true self. Discover the freedom and vibrancy within you as we release patterns of self-abandonment and transcend the health impacts of stress. Get ready to unlock your potential and embrace the freedom and vitality you've been seeking. Now let's dive in. You may think that saying no should be so easy, but it can be so complex and so challenging and have so many layers to it that just make it really difficult to actually say no to things. And maybe you've said no, and the immediate feeling you can often experience is that sense of guilt of like, oh no, they're gonna not be happy with my decision, or there's gonna be backlash, or maybe I should have just said yes, and I maybe the no was the wrong answer. But if you end up saying yes and you don't really want to say yes, then you end up following through on something and you have this seed of resentment that starts to build in you. Like, oh, I'm wasting my time on this. Like, I should have just said no to that. And then you have this resentment towards yourself where you like, what's wrong with me? Why do I keep saying yes to things that I don't want to say yes to? And so you can see how this becomes such a no-win situation for yourself where you're either stuck in a sense of guilt or you're stuck in a sense of resentment. Neither one feels good. So why is it so difficult to say no? What's going on beneath the surface in that? And so I had this experience the other day when our homeowner's insurance is changing. It got bought out by a new company, and we had to call and like figure out how do we set up this account. And this week has just been really busy with a lot of things that I have on my plate. And so yesterday, my husband's like, "Oh, I can do that. I can call them." And I was like, "No, I'll take care of it." Instead of just letting him do it, I then added onto my plate. But my week has been extremely busy, and to add just one more thing onto my plate, it feels so overwhelming. And so then I'm like, well, why didn't I just like let him do it? And then I started having this sense of like resentment of like, why didn't I just let him do it? Like, why am I just trying to take on everything? And then feeling like, here I go again, taking on all the things and having to be so uber independent. And so you can see how that feels like a no-win situation. Like if I let him take care of it, then I'm going to feel like I'm like a burden to him, or I'm not taking or pulling my fair share of weight. But yet if I took care of it, I'm taking on more than I feel like I'm capable of right now, even though it was something so simple. And so you can see this complexity of like the inability to really make a decision that's aligned with you. And so you either get in this place of guilt or you get in this place of resentment. And the reason we get into these places over and over and over again in our lives is because we have these limiting beliefs, these false beliefs about ourselves, in that I have to take care of everything, that maybe I'm not enough unless I do all these things, that I can't truly trust anyone to take care of this, that I have to take on all this, or that someone's going to perceive me as a burden if they help me and I can't receive that help. So these can be some of these beliefs that keep driving these behaviors of the inability to say no and the inability to honor what our own needs are and take care of ourselves, and our inability to not overextend ourselves constantly, even though there's that little voice inside of us is like, this feels like a lot. Just let somebody else help you, or just say no to a certain situation, or don't feel like you're obligated to do all these things. But yet we continue on these patterns of being so independent, self-sufficient, and yet exhausted all at the same time. So I share this story because these can be very subtle ways they pop up, but yet they can be really impactful where you get into this cycle of feeling like you're never doing enough and you're always exhausting yourself. You're always putting yourself out there. You're constantly doing more and more, taking on a lot. And then you end up feeling that resentment towards yourself, or you feel the guilt for allowing somebody else to do something for themselves. And so if you're experiencing this, I want to share with you two questions you can ask yourself in these moments. And this is something that if you're someone who tends to self-abandon and self-sacrifice, you most likely have not asked yourself these questions in a long time. And the one question is, how do I want to feel? So it can feel like a very simple question, but it can be often very complex. And so if you've never asked yourself, how do you want to feel? Then you're only going to continue on the cycles of feeling that guilt or the shame or the resentment because this is the pattern that you've come to learn. Versus in that moment, if I ask myself, how do I want to feel? Well, I want to feel free. I want to feel lighter. I want to feel a little bit more relaxed and not feel like I have to take on everything. And so that would be a really good way to just anchor into myself of like, how do I want to feel in this moment? And if I ask myself how I want to feel, then my action of taking on more is not in alignment with how I want to feel. And so it would have given me clarity in that moment to be like, okay, he's offering, I'll let him take care of that and not try to take on the burden anymore. Another question to ask yourself in those moments is, what do I need? We get so used to taking care of other people and relinquishing our time and our energy to other things outside ourselves that if we don't check in with ourselves and ask ourselves, what do I need? What do I actually need in this moment? And again, a simple question, but if we don't ask ourselves, we're never going to get an answer to that. And that was the case in this moment. I wasn't asking myself, what do I need? If I had asked myself in that moment, what do I need? I would have said, I need a little help here. I need someone just to take something off my plate so I don't feel like I'm taking on everything. And then again, that would have been in alignment with my needs and my desires. And so my decision in that time would have been changed if I checked in with myself and I would have just let him take care of it. And so if you find yourself struggling to say no or just taking on the burden of things all the time, even though you're exhausted, even though you deeply want to say no to things, then I want you to ask yourself these two questions. Take a moment of pause before you respond to a person and ask yourself, how do I want to feel? And what do I need in this moment? And then you can make a choice based on those answers rather than just being reactionary and going back into the same old patterns that you've always been in. And now you'll experience a little bit less of that guilt, a little bit less of that self-resentment. And you'll notice that you are tuning into yourself a little bit more and not just taking on the burden of everything and thinking everything is your own responsibility. And so I hope that helps you to recognize that in some of those moments where you feel like you have to take on the world's problems and that everything rests on your shoulders, that if you can just tune into yourself for a moment, ask yourself those questions, then you can make those decisions based on what you desire rather than based on fear of potential guilt from someone else and not making those to avoid the possible resentment that you may feel later on. And so if you do this, I would love to hear how it goes for you. And feel free to send me a message at Dr. Kelly Kessler on any platform. I would love to hear from you. And thank you so much for tuning in to Rewiring Health.